Welcome everybody. We got the Doola swag on. We got the Doola hat and the Doola hoodie and little laptop preview. Welcome, we're back for another week, another Dooley live. And in today's live stream, we are doing a session on the product roadmap. So for all the product lovers out there, we're going to talk through what's coming up for Doola. So very first reminder is we have a global audience, but we love the live stream. We love the live chat. So if you have any questions, we always prioritize those. You can drop them in the chat. We pop the questions up on the screen and we answer them in real time. So if anyone has questions, if you have business questions, I want to prioritize those first. So drop them in the live stream and we can answer. Now, I also do a check each week because we do have questions that come in from the prior week. So we had a couple cool questions that came in, and I'm going to pull up a couple of those. And then if there's new questions, we'll cover those before we get into today's topic. So the very first question that came in was a question from Kumar Take 1729. Can you suggest some ways where a high schooler can start a startup? First of all, that's awesome. Someone in high school wants to start a startup. When I was in high school, I was shoveling some driveways. That was my technically first business, a snow shoveling business, but I don't think I knew what a startup was. So really cool to see. Here's what I would say, Kumar, just start. There are so many tools today where it depends on what you're trying to build, but it doesn't even have to be a startup. Maybe it's a snow shoveling business, or if you have an idea for a product, there are really cool tools now where you can vibe code them and you don't even have to be an engineer. There's lots of no code tools where you can actually build something. So I would say if you're asking where you can start a startup, really all you need is an internet connection. And even then, it doesn't have to be a startup. It could be a business like a brick and mortar business or a service based business where you're physically doing something. But that's what I would say, just start. And if you are listening, let me know specifically what type of business you're thinking about. And I'm happy to pull that up too. Okay, we had a couple live questions coming in. So let me pull this up. We had a comment from Falu Saul saying hi. Hello to you as well. Thanks for dropping in. We also had a comment here. A lawn pending issue. Excel imported transactions in Doola books can't be manually fixed when expenses and revenues are mistags. When can a fix be expected? That is a great question. Here's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually screenshot this and I'm going to send it right now. We're going to get some real-time feedback here. I'm going to pop this into the user feedback channel. And I'm going to send this into the team. Okay, so we got some live feedbacks we'll send in. The other thing I'll say is I don't see your full name here, but if you can personally email me, my email is arjun@doola.com. If you can just send me an email so I can look up your account, I'll reply to you right there. So I just pinged it to the team. And if you can send me an email, I'll personally reply there. But we'll take all the feedback. I appreciate you sharing this. And we'll circle back with a timeline as well. So please send me that email so I can properly find your account. I do want to make sure I close the loop there. Okay. Next question that came in. What keeps you motivated and how are you leveraging the YT for business YouTube? How much of your time does it consume? Okay, I think there's three questions here. What keeps you motivated? How are you leveraging YouTube for business? And how much of your time does it consume? So very first thing, what keeps me motivated? Biggest thing I'd say is it is really fun, somewhat addicting, to help people start a business. And not just start the business, but get to first sale. Because you vicariously get to live through them. And then after they get to the first sale, it's fun to help people solve the problem of getting to the second sale. And if you can get to the second sale, you can get to the third. If you can get to the third, you can get to the 10th. If you can do 10, you can do 100. So you get where I'm going there. So that's fun. And I think the hardest initial part is when you don't have that customer feedback or the loop of you're putting in all this work and you have no feedback cycle. But then once you see someone say, and I'm looking at our channel right here, someone said, Doola has been an excellent, actually, hold, let me just share this with everyone. So you can actually see what this looks like. We have this channel. Actually, I'll just read it out loud. It's a feedback. This is some Trustpilot, which is online. Doola has been an excellent partner in forming company name and managing all related tax filings and compliance requirements. Their team handled every step with the utmost professionalism, efficiency, and clear communication. Highly recommend for anyone looking for a smooth and reliable business setup in the US. When you get that feedback, it's addicting. And it's really fun to put in work, get that feedback, and realize you're having an impact in helping someone. So that's the biggest thing that keeps me motivated. It's having an impact and doing something that other people need and are using, building something, putting it out in the world. And then a logical question might be, oh, but what if you're not getting that feedback? I think that's the hardest thing in everything. So let's go to the next question here. How are you leveraging YouTube for the business? This is connected. I ultimately think that people don't buy from a business, they buy from people. So that's why sales exists, right? You talk to someone. And the cool thing about YouTube, all content, but specifically YouTube, is you're actually just stopping your scroll. So it's not like TikTok or Instagram where it's a 15-second scroll, but you're actually stopping. And for several minutes, which in this day and age is wild, listening to someone or something. So you have someone's full attention. You can't really multitask. I mean, technically you could be on two screens, but you're actually stopping and listening to someone just for several minutes. And what it does for business, we've seen this at Doola. If someone consumes your content, they're so much more likely to build trust with you. And then eventually, if you provide value, use what you offer. So YouTube to me does two huge things. It helps you at middle of funnel or bottom of funnel, where someone who knows of you but isn't completely sold on should I use you can go watch. Oh, they have authority. They help people start LLCs or they help people do bookkeeping. Oh, let me learn about sales tax. Oh, you know what? They know their stuff. I'm actually going to use them. And it helps top of funnel, where someone might have never heard of you. I think a lot of businesses, the main problem, especially when you're starting, is no one just knows who you are. You're irrelevant. You're hidden. No one knows who you are. So you have to promote yourself, put yourself out there, and YouTube can be top of funnel. Now, to the third question here, how much of your time does it consume? The system we have, because I do fundamentally believe you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, is every week we have a hold for this live stream, which goes live on YouTube and it gets put on different platforms. And we have a hold, it's every Wednesday afternoon for a live recording session. That hold is from about 1:15 to 3 p.m. So that's every week. Then during that time, that weekly recording session, that's when we record. So that's a little less than 2 hours of time per week. And then you have the live stream here. And then I would say outside of that, there's time spent thinking about what are we going to talk about. And I would say the hardest thing here is that when you're starting anything new, you put something out there and you're likely not going to see the results immediately. And I think the hardest thing, and this is when most people stop in anything, is they don't see results, they don't see results, they don't see results. But consistency is the entry is the entry in. You have to stay consistent to be in the game there. And then eventually, with enough time and iteration, what's actually happening is you're improving video after video. You understand what people find value with, and you do more of that. And people ask you, you start to get more feedback, and then you get the feedback loop. So ultimately, to answer the question here, YouTube helps with top of funnel acquisition, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. And the same way when it comes to a business, once you're actually creating a video or starting an LLC for someone and you get the feedback, hey, awesome video that provided a ton of value, or hey, thank you so much for helping me start my dream business, that becomes even more fun and that fuels the motivation. So fantastic question there. Hope that was helpful. Next question here. How do you generally hire? How much time do you spend on hiring? I'm going to say, I don't like to say read a book, but there's the best book on hiring I've read is called The Who Method, or The Who Hiring Method. We literally implement that at Doola. So I would just recommend that book if you haven't read it. It's the single best book I've read on hiring, the full process. I've also done a dedicated video actually on the best interview questions. So you can check that out as well, but it's literally learnings from the Who Hiring Method book and a couple other questions I heard from other folks in industry. How much time do you spend on hiring? I personally have a hold every week for final round interviews. And then one thing that the Who Hiring Method in the book talks about is you always can be hiring. I know it could sound cheesy, like always be selling, always be hiring. But the point is, anytime you meet someone, the book recommends, hey, you can ask who's the most talented person you know. I'd love to meet them. And even if that person isn't looking now, you never know what could happen in the future. You can learn from them as well too. So I have a system now where each week I have that hold for final round interviews. And then whenever I'm out chatting with people, if someone seems interesting and seems talented or smart, it's always just nice to meet them, stay connected on LinkedIn, catch up with them, etc. Okay, we had another question here. Lots of questions coming in. Let me check the live chat one more time. We got a question in the live chat. How to get first customers for a B2B startup? Okay, I don't want every answer to be I've done a video on this, but I kid you not, I just did a video on Y Combinator's brutally simple playbook to go from 0 to 100 companies fast. And the answer is do things that don't scale, which means a lot of people say, oh, I don't have the product. I don't have my webinar system set up, a restream. I don't have a sales team. How am I going to get someone? So what you do is you take out your phone and or your laptop and you send cold emails to people, or you send DMs, or you ask a friend to make an intro, or you go to their office and wait outside. These things don't scale. Or you just take your laptop and when someone's in the networking session or at a meetup, you say, hey, try out the app. That's what the Collison brothers did when they started Stripe. They probably don't do that now. Very first customer for Doola, Twitter DMs, DMing people, personally taking all the sales calls to start, personally filing the forms in the IRS website. So I don't know your exact business, but if you're a B2B startup, you probably have a sense of who the customer is. So make a list. I would say make a list of all those customers, maybe pick 100 and start sending messages. Can you get an intro to that person? And then if you are solving a problem that person has, they'll pay you for it. If you're truly solving a problem and they trust you and you're a good design partner. And the final thing I'll say is you can always have the killer offer. So what I like to say is if someone's truly starting, the killer offer you can do, and this is what I used to do, is, hey, I'll literally give you my phone number. Show me a bigger company where the founder or the CEO is giving their phone number. I mean, maybe they did that when they started, but that's your edge. You can do things that don't scale. You can hustle. So I would say here, make that list. And if someone's interested, say, look, I'm going to go above and beyond to make this work for you. Literally, here's my number. You have a question, you can message me. So there's ways you can win through hustle, through your energy. That's what you have to do when you're starting. And ultimately, if you're solving a problem that other people have, they will pay you. Money is the universal exchange of value. So I hope that's helpful. That's a fantastic question. I'm going to keep the questions coming. We got a bunch coming in. Next question here. How do YC founders approach customers that outsiders won't? I see that YC founders land big clients in the first 2 weeks, but not the case with non-YC. I will say, I think this is a limiting belief, and here's what I mean. I think actually what happens here is that, yes, being a YC company can have social proof and trust, which maybe makes someone more likely to actually answer your call. But I actually think that the people who are in YC maybe just feel like they're more confident now to go do the cold outbound or do things that don't scale. Technically, you could do that whether or not you're in YC or not. So I think in this case here, to answer, there's probably some component of social proof that helps because we're social animals. Social proof does matter. Whether you like it or not, people do judge books by the cover. But I also do think there's this belief or limiting belief that YC unlocks is once you're in there, you feel more confident. You're like, hey, I can do this thing, which is the power of surrounding yourself. And that's part of the power of YC there. So I do disagree here that there's this hard line of, oh, if you're in YC, you can get a customer in 2 weeks versus not. Because not every company goes through YC. So I would just question or challenge you on that specifically. You can send the message. You can hustle to get that first person. So I would challenge you there. Again, if you want to clarify exactly here the business model, I can try to answer. But I would just really challenge you there. And I think that's something I've learned a lot is usually we have these limiting beliefs of, oh, I can't do this thing. You've never done it until you've done it. So you got to do the thing first. Okay, another question that came in. What is the single most misunderstood factor when choosing the state to form an LLC? Let's do a trivia question. What is the best state to form an LLC in? No cheating, no Geminiing, Clauding, GPTing, Perplexitying, Googling, YouTubing, no asking. Okay, I know 90% of you, because I've asked this question before and counted, thought Delaware. That is wrong. So that's the most misunderstood thing. Now, the reason why people say Delaware is because it's the most popular state. There's more companies formed in Delaware than people that live in Delaware. There's the Chancery Court. There's the Delaware C Corp, which is the sexy company or sexy entity type that startups do. But the truth is, the best state to form an LLC in is actually the state you live in. Because if you don't form in the state you live in, which is the state where you're doing business, you then end up potentially paying fees across multiple states because you now have to get a registered agent in that state. And I say potentially because you're supposed to do a foreign qualification. Not everyone does. I recommend doing that. So now you've just doubled your fees out of the gate because you thought, oh, I live in New York, I should form in Delaware. So that's the most misunderstood thing. Now, if you live outside the US, because I know we have a global audience, you can choose any state to form in. I actually believe a lawyer will tell you 11 things you shouldn't do. I'll say the one thing I recommend, you should use Wyoming. Why? One, the Wyoming LLC was where the LLC was invented. Two, don't sleep on Wyoming. It's the Swiss Alps of the Rockies. Number three, it's cheaper. The Delaware franchise fee is $300 and Wyoming it's $60. So you save $240 per year in the annual filing. Wyoming is also very friendly for digital online businesses, especially e-commerce businesses, very forward looking. And you still get the limited liability protection. You get your EIN after that. You can get the business bank account. So that's my recommendation for non-US founders, the Wyoming LLC. And the last thing I'll say is if you are raising US venture capital, Delaware C Corp. That's going to be required by US investors. You can issue stock. There's the Chancery Court. So I draw a simple decision tree. If venture capital, Delaware C Corp, else LLC. If US, state you live in. If not US, Wyoming's my recommendation. So I hope that was helpful for someone. That's really the most misunderstood aspect of what state to form in. Fantastic question there. Okay, we got a comment here from Mesbah Alam. Hi, what is up? If you have a question, drop it in the chat. We always prioritize the live chat. Okay. We got one more question here, then I'll jump into the product roadmap. What if I'm just testing a business? What kind of risks come with that? I think the biggest risk is the universal equalizer is time, right? So you're spending time. That's the universal equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're how old you are, doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter where you're from. Time is the greatest equalizer. So I think the risk of just testing is it depends on, what's your business model? Are you testing a supplement business? If so, then maybe there's a chance where you got to be careful. If someone takes your supplement and gets sick, that might impact them negatively. You don't want to get sued from that. But if you're just testing a website, for example, there's not much downside other than your time. So I do believe that a business is one of the greatest forms of asymmetric upside, meaning small input with outsized potential return. And what I mean by that is starting a business, there's the time it takes, right, to set up your entity. You use doola for that, building your landing page, etc. But there's so much upside. You can scale the business. You can serve customers. You can provide financial freedom. It can provide the hardest challenge you've ever done. All of that upside from that small input. And I think there's many other things in life like that with asymmetric upside. Investing, right? You take the time to make an investment, the money can grow. Angel investing, going to a cocktail hour because you can meet someone that could unlock the next job. Starting a company, creating content. Creating content has asymmetric upside. The time it takes. Let's even take this recording now. Doing this recording, 30-minute hold, goes online. Content can be created once and replicated infinitely. Someone might watch this 2 years from now and say, hey, crap, I was about to form in the wrong state. Thank you for the education, and I want to use doola. So content has asymmetric upside. So I think the biggest risk is the time, but I would just ask, if you have the itch, you should go after it. You don't want to say if only or what if. I think those are the two saddest phrases. Just go for it. Try it. The worst thing is you spend some time, but at least you say you went after it and tried it. Okay, we got a couple. You know what? I always prioritize the live chat. So the product demo can hold off. We like the live chat. Question that came in from Money with Man. No problem that I have. Niche industry, understanding to productize using an LLM, large language model. How to find the problem, gaining an interest to the audience that you have no network in. Okay, so if I understand the question here, you one are trying to find a problem, and then two, gaining intro to the audience that you've no network in. Let's tackle these separately. I think the easiest way to find problems is what problems do you face? And the hardest thing to do is we just go through life thinking, oh, this is the way it should be done. And my favorite example of this is, for how long did we step outside in the rain, stand in the rain with our hand up, wave down this yellow car, get into the yellow car, wet, the yellow car drives you to a place, you take out cash, you lean over, you pay, you get change, and go. For how long did we do that? And then all of a sudden, Uber came around, where wait a second, nope, I can click a button, the car shows up, the payment's handled. We just assumed that's the way it had to be done. So I would recommend the easiest way to find a problem is what problems do you experience, but it's really hard. You have to almost pull yourself out from reality and ask like, hey, why does it have to be this way? To question, to be curious. Another easy way to find problems is ask other people what their problems are. So you can clarify money with Manon, but I would look internally, but also just ask people around you. Think about your prior work experiences. What did you do that was time consuming or you spent a lot of money on? Maybe there's ways to help people save money. And I ultimately think any business does one of three things. It helps you with wealth, health, or relationships. Any business. So we can run Doola through that too. Um, Doola isn't really helping you with your health. It's not really helping you with your relationships. Doola helps you with wealth. Why? Because if you want to make money or get paid as a business, you need a business bank account, a payment processor to get that. The EIN is required to get that. The LLC is required. And then there are two certainties of life, death and taxes. We do your taxes and bookkeeping for you. Doola helps you make money or get wealth. So any business, you can run it through there. You can ask, is it helping me get or increase someone's wealth, health, or happiness? Sorry, wealth, health, relationships, and then obviously I would hope one of those things helps with happiness. Second question, gaining an intro to the audience that you have no network in. I think people underestimate how much others are willing to help, especially if you hustle. So if you send a cold email to someone or a cold message, I think a lot of times people just don't send enough of them. And getting rejected is part of the game. Like, here's my favorite analogy for this is, let's take baseball, the U.S. sport you hit the ball. You make the Hall of Fame if every 10 times you go to the plate, you hit the ball 3 times. In so many things in life, if you were a doctor and every 10 surgeries you only succeeded 3 times, you wouldn't have a job. But in baseball in the Hall of Fame, 3 out of 10 times you make the Hall of Fame, a 300 batting average. I think a lot of people don't realize that when it comes to cold outbound or reaching out, it's even lower percentages, but you stop too early. Like, let's say, I'll use an example. Let's say you're sending cold messages. I don't know, there might be a 2 to 5% conversion rate. Let's say it's 5. That means to get 5 responses, you have to send 100 emails. But that's an average, meaning you could send 90 emails, get no responses, and then in the next 10, you get 5. That's technically 5% out of 100. But a lot of people stop after 20 and say, oh, it's not working. So to gain an intro to the audience that you have no network in, I really would just start reaching out to people. People are more willing to help than you think. And if you're earnest and looking to learn and solving problems for other people, hey, you could offer them to get them coffee, etc. I think people are actually more willing to help than you think. So I would just give that a try. I'd strongly encourage you to and push you to try that. Comment here from Crazy Bets. Hi, I love your videos. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let me know if there's any other questions or topics you have. Again, this is I just talked earlier about the feedback loop, right? If you put something out there, you don't get feedback. Crazy Bats. Hi, I loved your videos. That's awesome. We have a feedback loop now. Means a ton. Let me know if you have any questions or anything else that I could cover. Question here. What is DNB? Is this Duns and Bradstreet? Might need a clarification from you. This also could be a new acronym. I'm not entirely sure there, but Mesba, let me know. And then another question here. If you weren't living in the States, this is the last question we'll cover. If you weren't living in the States, how would you launch an app, a web app, SaaS, AI, anything really? So if you're asking for a tool recommendation, you could use, there's plenty of these vibe coding apps. So you could use something like Replit or Cursor or Lovable. That's what I would probably go to first, but you can also build no-code solutions. There's things like Bubble. Check out Bubble, check out Glide Apps. There's a ton of no-code tools. There's a video actually coming up on the very first app I built, which was a no-code fitness app. I didn't know how to code, but I built that app there, applied to YC, got an interview, but didn't get in. But here we are with Doola several years later. So I would use a no-code app there. And I will cover one more. This is the last live chat question. When you've got multiple goals competing for attention, how do you choose what to tackle first while still prioritizing your long-term goals? Great question, Yusuf. I believe you might, if you're asking from I think this applies to everything actually, but let's say this is from a business perspective. I like this tool called the Eisenhower Matrix, where you have how urgent something is and how important something is. And what it requires you to do, just you can look up Eisenhower Matrix, is really ask, is this urgent and important? If so, do it now. But I think the key is spending time on those things that are important but not urgent, because it's so easy just to respond to email all day, and then that list of tasks just continues to build. So what I found, and this is the analogy I like for this, is that if you have a jar and it has rocks and pebbles and sand, if you put the sand in first, then you put the pebbles, the rocks actually don't fit, they just come out the top. But if you flip the order and put the rocks in first, you actually find the pebbles and sand filter through the cracks and everything fits in that same jar. I think it's the same thing where in your day, you've got to carve out time for what's essential, the rocks, the big meaty things that move the ball forward. So you've got multiple goals competing for your attention. In your day, you've got to find that religious time. It could be early in the morning for some people. It could be after lunch or evening. I personally like the morning. You've got to carve out time for the rocks, those most important things that get you towards the long-term goals. Then rest of the day, respond to the emails, the fires, let them come at you. Let them punch you in the face. The pebbles and sand will fit through. So I hope that analogy resonated. We are at time today. Thank you all for the questions. Again, if there's any other questions, you can personally email me. It's arjun@doola.com. We'll cover all the questions live next week, and we'll LLC everyone next Wednesday. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.